Throb forever. Yo, heart throb.
All right. Now this little discussion is going to be kind of hard to put into words, although it's not. You know, the thumbnail or the picture for this discussion pretty much says it all. But I want to start off by mentioning some books first, you know, and the authors. Ivan Van Sertima's They Came Before Columbus. Ivan Van Sertima, They Came Before Columbus. Chancellor Williams's The Destruction of Black Civilization. And let me throw a wild card in there. The Apocrypha, the Biblical Apocrypha, specifically Second Esdras. I'm not going to go into the book or into the books. I'm just throwing those out there so y'all can look them up and kind of see what's going on with this discussion. But it's kind of hard to quantify or put in the verbiage, although many people have done it before me. But we can't just put the information out there and then stop, because what's happening is we have the information out there, but the newer, younger, more vibrant FBA individuals don't necessarily know where to look for it. And it's becoming increasingly harder to find those materials. But like I said, the thumbnail says it all. Like if you look at the photo, it has like the entire Western Hemisphere from North America, Central America, and South America. And clearly it says, you know, American Blacks FBA, we've been outside. And what I mean by that is when you look at the history and the things that were written when some of the first conquistadors and the first explorers came to the Americas, when they touched down on the physical mainland of the Americas, that means the actual continents, not the islands. The descriptions that they gave from the photos that they drew, the depictions, the writings, you know, that they had in their own personal memoirs and stuff, the illustrations, these were clearly of Black people. And the North Hemisphere, in North America, in Central America, and in South America. And so it's becoming, it's been kind of confusing, you know, to a degree for most of our people, because we were told that we weren't here at all. Now, like I said, don't get me wrong, we have plenty of American Black people who have talked about this before. And, you know, they actually put me on with the term of autochthonous. And some of those people, a lot of those people were Black women who were well up on this information. And, you know, YouTube always finds a way to demonetize a channel or don't, you know, get the traffic to them for much support, so that those concepts that they've been talking about for years could be grabbed and researched and then heavily studied, so that, you know, when people come across this information, they know how to and where, they know how to get the information and where to get the information to effectively rebut these claims that there wasn't a lot of Black people or no Black people in the Americas. You see, so we have to continue to push this information and this knowledge that has already been gathered, but for the most part, it's been a concerted effort almost to suppress this information. So like when you take like Ivan Van Sertima and They Came Before Columbus, you know, you look at the information and with the Olmec heads, and one of his strongest points that he made in that book was that, the Eurocentric anthropologists wanted to say that those weren't black people, and that there were people down there that had the same type of facial features and this and that. And he said, okay, so if you want to try that they had the same facial features, let's flip to the back of the head of the Olmec and then look at what type of hair is on the back of the head of the Olmec. And it was clearly Negroid hair. You see, so you have to know what type of information to get to, like I said, to effectively rebut these slanderous and displacing claims that we weren't in America. And that's why, I definitely don't have a problem with the term FBA. I'm all with that. But I also include American blacks. And the unfortunate thing is, it just so happens that the black people in America, the American blacks in North America, just so happen to be the ones who have spearheaded this, what we could say awakening, so to speak. Now, I don't know if they have people in Central and South America who have done the same thing or are doing the same thing. But when you hit Central America, Mexico and all of that, they got this, they got black people down there that are, that have been there. You get to South America, they have black people down there that have been there. So when I say American black, I'm talking collectively from all of the autochthonous black populations that were in the Western Hemisphere land continent area, from North America all the way down to South America. You see? And for people who want to say that this is pseudoscience, or this is pretendian, or that we're trying to displace others and all this and that. Like, I'm not even talking about what the others, I don't care about what they got going on. What I'm talking about is my people, my ethnicity, where we come from. Now, this is just from my own personal research. I don't personally, from the research that I've done, I don't personally believe in all of these millions of Africans were taken from the continent of Africa and brought to the United States. I don't believe that. Like, I believe that there were some, yeah. But what we're coming into is the understanding that we were already here, and that those people that they enslaved primarily, and we know this due to name reallocation, being reclassified. We have the documents and the information on that we were reclassified as other than what we were. So I'm not buying we were all brought over here. We were already here, and we were the people who consequentially became enslaved and were the enslaved blacks. But we're autochthonous to the Americas, North, Central, and South. This is what makes it so complicated. And like I said, I don't know if people in those other land regions, Central and South America, I don't know if they have an awakening going on the same way. But up here, we pretty much have the same thing with the awakening. So perhaps we're just the ones who are leading it off with spearheading this whole deal. My thing is, I don't believe that they transported millions or thousands of black people from Africa. I think the majority of it came from them transporting slaves from quite possibly South America to Central and North America, and vice versa. because they're already there. And the quickest way for you to get them there, you can't, transport them up land wise, to transport the cargo. So people don't even think that being put on a ship, that you didn't have to come from Africa to be in a transatlantic slave trade. If you go from North America on ship to Central or South America, that's still transatlantic. If you go from South America to Central and North America, that's still transatlantic. I hope y'all see what I'm saying. It's crazy to believe that an imported people would be imported somewhere and then become just this massive labor for like they were transporting this many people. Like, it doesn't make sense. Logistically, it doesn't make sense. They can't even do that today. They can't, it's not even possible today to do that. So I'm saying that the transatlantic slave trade, I'm not saying that some didn't come from Africa, but I'm saying that realistically, logically, that it makes more sense that these people came from within and on the Western Hemisphere continent landmass. And, we'll never know until God reveals it to us as to how they, effectively, caused the type of splintering and segregation amongst these people on the Western Hemisphere landmass. We'll never quite know how they did it, but the book, The Destruction of a Black Civilization, the Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams, kind of gives the insight into that. Like, in the book, he talks about how over in Africa with those tribes over there, how the Europeans pitted one tribe against the other, did certain things to get them to start warring with each other. And then that was effectively a way for them to get in. Since they were splintered, they weren't unified. It's a wrap. You could take them over. And I believe that same thing happened in the Western Hemisphere. Now, here's another thing I want y'all to think about. Like with the, I just lost my train of thought. Damn, I hate when I do that. So let me just try to pick up why. But anyway, with Chancellor Williams, what I was going to say, when we look at phenotype globally, if they're saying that the Siberian, the Mongolian, the Asian, so on and so forth, and we know what that phenotype is physically, that they were primarily all over the globe. And every time we come to say, wait a minute, natural law and genetics says this, and even science says this, and anthropology says this, that the darker skin would have been the most ideal phenotype in these areas from when, evolutionary adaptation, started taking place. Regardless of how you try to put it, darker skin was the selected phenotype to inhabit the globe. But if you say that the Siberian or the lighter phenotype was the default, you're saying that most of the globe was inhabited by that phenotype. Now you gotta think about that. You have to really think about, like, if you're saying that there were no black people in the Western Hemisphere before Africans coming from Africa by slave trade to the Americas, then you kind of cause a tension, a logic tension that is not logical. I don't have time to really go into it the way that I want to, but these are some concepts that y'all can look into yourself and see what was selected globally to be placed in these land areas. and specifically the areas, where it's hot and humid and, hot and dry, so on and so forth. Well, some people say, well, what about over in, Vietnam and see the same thing? It's going to be the same thing. The phenotype over there, the selected phenotype for Polynesian and Melanesia and Vietnam and Cambodia and all of that, not only does the selected phenotype indicate that, but their own ancient statues and temple work state the same thing. Like those people over there depicted in the statues and paintings, they were Negroid with cornrows and braids like niggas have. So how this whole thing flips around to there were no black people in these areas. And right now I'm talking about the eastern areas, Far East, and even the Pacific Islands and things like that. But it's insane to say that black people weren't already in the Americas before the arrival of white Europeans. You see what I'm saying? So that's why the thumbnail, I had to try to put it in a way where it becomes a collective thing instead of just thinking about it being from us just being in North America. And I know Dane Calloway has done some extensive research on that as well. There's so many of us that have done the research. But like I said, like these people like Dane Calloway and man, like it's so many men and so many American black men and women that have been fighting and talking about this for so long. But it's like they keep getting, like they're not being discredited, although that's what the machine is trying to do, is discredit them. But it keeps shuffling their information deeper under the pile. So we have to keep spitting these names out of the people who put in the work so that y'all can go and look at their work and get those pieces that a person like me, I'm not going to be able to give it to you like that because I didn't set my platform up like that. My thing is, I'm not letting it go. Like I remember what was said. I remember what these people talked about. It's stuff that I had already known too, but they were the first ones who, said, yo, let me jump on a platform and get this shit cracking. Like they put in the work. These are our scholars and our researchers and detectives that said, we're not going to let this lie continue to be perpetuated and lie to our people. So when you look at that thumbnail, the FBA thing, yeah, foundational Black Americans. But I'm saying it may not just extend to just North America. There may be, look, it's like this. Foundational Black North Americans. Foundational Black Central Americans. Foundational Black South Americans. Do y'all see what I'm saying? So I believe that slave trade was going back and forth amongst the, Western Hemisphere. And then we do know that it went even transatlantic over to the east, where they were taking us over there, like with the Pocahontases and stuff. You know what I'm saying? That type of, we know that it went both ways, but we have to look at, why did it take them so long to effectively subdue the Americas? Like it took them from when they started coming over, as early as 1400, maybe 1300, who knows? Maybe even earlier than that. I don't know. But why did it take them so long to effectively do that? Like they couldn't do it all in one swoop. And they'll try to tell you that, well, it was because Spain and Portugal started it first down in South America, and then Spain, and then England and Britain and this and that. But yeah, that's probably how it went down. But let me say this too. when you look at it, England, after they did their bullshit, they became kind of like against the whole slave trade and things like that. And then Spain and England had their warring over the territories in the United States and in North America, with Spain, essentially being defeated for the lands. And so they kind of pretty much backed off and then focused more on the Pacific Islands and going further east. But when you do the research and you look into all this stuff, they basically stepped away and said, okay, we'll concede these lands and these people to England, but we will have an agreement with them for slaves. And that's what they did. You see what I'm saying? Like a lot of people don't know this. That's what they did. And when you do the research, you'll find out that this is the truth. Look at the agreements that Spain made with England in regards to slavery and who would provide the slave labor. You see, Spain was kind of ahead of the game. All we need is the labor. And y'all can ship them to us where we need them. And we're going to focus on establishing our language as the dominant factor. And that's what Spain has done. So when you look at it like the Pacific Islands and, the Asian countries, Vietnam and Philippines and all that, a lot of them people speak Spanish, right? They Asian, but they speak Spanish. And then today they'll filter those people in to the Americas, specifically North America. And we looking at them like, okay, well, you clearly look Asian, but we don't know that they identify as Spanish speaking Asians. See, this is critical, because what this is about is you can control business and expand your business infrastructure by the people who associate themselves with your language. That might be going over some people's head, but just slow down and think about this and then look at what's currently happening today. I don't want to have to keep spelling it out like that, so flat out and directly like that, put the thinking cap on. But me saying that we've been outside with that thumbnail, we were all over this place, all over the Western Hemisphere before the arrival of the first Europeans, and their own records even are testament to that. Like I mentioned, like, why did it take them so long to finally subdue these black skinned or dark brown skinned peoples of the Americas? Like, you take Alabama and Tuscaloosa, they can say what they want about that. But Tuscaloosa, his name even means black warrior. You see what I'm saying? But Spain and what was it? DeSoto? Maybe DeSoto. I don't think it was Hernandez, but maybe DeSoto, like, they came and tried to take over those areas in Florida and the Carolinas and Tennessee, by force and was getting smashed out. So my thing is, the way that they teach us this history about this is like they just came over and, wiped the people out and then they were set up. No, like, they had to return time after time, century after century, before they finally had what they needed to totally subdue the entire Western Hemisphere. And you cannot do that with just one European country. That's why I'm saying that the whole thing with Spain and France and England fighting each other, I don't see how they all fighting each other, but yet still remained, one comprehensive enslaver for the entire world. But in this case, specifically the Western Hemisphere, to me, it's like they feigned being enemies or opponents, but underneath it, they were allied. To me, you don't have that type of warring with each other and then still successfully subdue a whole other continent of people and the entire continent. To me, it's just the appearance of being against each other, because ultimately they spread their colonization of the same type over all of the globe, specifically in all of the areas that had phenotypically black people. Now, obviously, these would be different ethnic groups, but they were black people. You know, the old Webster's dictionaries and things like that talk about how, it mentions the copper colored peoples of North America. But we've been given the term black when we know that we're not black. You know, when I was growing up as a kid, it was very rare for me to see black people who were just primarily copper colored from Africa. They were way darker than, a lot of the Western Hemisphere black Americans. Not that we didn't have extremely dark black Americans over here too, but that was primarily their thing. You see what I'm saying? Specifically, if they're closer to the sun, like, or the equator like that. 9 times out of 10, when I was younger, most people that I ran into from Africa, they were all very, very dark people. But now they've lightened up. They're more, copper. And not that copper or brass can't be dark as well. That's not what I'm saying. For those of you that have wisdom and insight, take the jewels. But we've been here. We've been outside. There's plenty of documentation from their own anthropologists and historians that say the same thing. And their own European historians who were initially out to disprove that we were here, and they got convicted with the truth so bad that they had to admit it. So American Black, all 3 sections of the Western continent, of the Western Hemisphere continent, North, Central, and South America. And we take we're down in certain parts of South America, Argentina, where they, enacted a whole extinction of genocide on the black people down there, where they literally killed them all off. Literally. You have Cuba, and these are the islands, but still over here. But in Cuba, they had a specific breed of dog that, now mind you, I learned this from listening to Tariq Nasheed, but then I had to go and do the research about it and found it, but that's why I'm mentioning it. But they had a specific breed of dog that they used to specifically attack and eat the black people over in Cuba. And then the dog, basically went extinct after slavery was over because, they had to, pretty much put it down or, kind of graft the genetics for that type of, predisposition out of the dog. And then we know what they did with the dogs on blacks in North America and South America. You see what I'm saying? Bloodhounds and things that I think about. Bloodhound. They track blood, the scent of blood from whatever animal they hunting. But I want y'all to think about this, man. You being an owned livestock during slavery. They use their dogs to keep the slaves and their animals in check. So the dogs know the smell of each type of animal, each type of human. And so when they go to hunt you down, they're going to be pretty much successful in tracking you down and getting to you because the bloodhound senses smell. You see what I'm saying? But this is where it gets real jacked up. Like, you imagine escaping from slavery. Now, the first thing is, if you got a wound or something, like, they're going to be able to track you anyway just from the human slave scent or whatever. But if you got a wound, an open wound, or manage to get a cut or something like that while you're running from these people, that's going to, let them be able to track you even better. But then here's the other thing. Think about the women. I swear this shit brings tears in my eyes, man. But you think about the women, the black women who were escaping slavery, and if they was on their menstrual cycle, the release of the monthly cycle, the blood. These motherfuckers would use dogs, making our every effort of escape and freedom from their asses that much more impossible. So this is why y'all can't never forget this shit. And this is why y'all can't never, allow people to slander and misplace and displace us and our ancestors and what they had to go through for us to be here. And we sit around talking all day and doing everything that we do today, and we may not have any knowledge of the type of atrocities that the people who were the predecessors or progenitors of our bloodline had to go through. Like us knowing that we had a direct ancestor that more than likely experienced something just utterly atrocious. You see? And we have to be careful with this information because I don't like putting that type of sorrow in the ear of my people. But we cannot forget what was done. And then, just like I said, logistically about us being outside, we've been outside, man. Not just in North America, but in Central and South America. Now, were there some Africans brought over? Yeah, I'm sure there were. I'm sure there were. But if they had been over here as long as we had been here, and as long as, they saying slavery started, like in the 1400s down in South America and all that, they ain't no longer African either. They've had an exogenesis and a cultural, creation that by proxy forced them into an exclusivity of ethnicity separate from Africans. You see what I'm saying? So I just wanted to touch y'all with that real quick. Leave y'all comments down there. Share it, debate it, rebut it if you can, if you disagree, whatever the thing is. But American Black's FBA, we've been outside. I'm out.
Throb forever. Yo, Throb.